The dream began with descending in what felt like a very large elevator. It didn't have the typical walls that an elevator usually has. It was sort of cavernous. It was a very large, round space, and there was lots of people in the elevator with me. As we descended in the elevator, I remember seeing varying levels and different levels of Earth, to which eventually broke way into what felt like different lands, sort of, that we were passing through. One of them felt very icy and cold. Others of them just felt absent of any kind of light, just dark places. And then I remember one of them being the sides of the walls were filled with bones, just cemented into the walls. It definitely had a very Indiana Jones kind of a feel to it. But as we got through these levels, I remember coming out into a very large, cavernous, open area. And it was clear that this was the last level that I would see. As we opened up into this space, the elevator that we were in now felt like it was just sort of free floating down through the air. No walls on it, but just a platform that was descending. As I looked around in this large cavernous space, there were pools of fire that were burning. There were dark hidden corners of it. There were just very craggy sort of area with spikes coming down from different directions, and we landed in this place. Immediately I was whisked away from this area, this elevator, and tied to a chair. I remember my shirt being stripped off from me, and people, faceless beings, immediately starting to hit me. Some were kicking me and punching me and slapping my face, and I felt whips go across my back. And I'd never really experienced pain in a dream before, but in this dream I was almost experiencing some of the pain of it. I felt like I could almost feel it in my body. At one point, a person smashed my chair over and smashed my face into a rock that was in front of me. My teeth all shattered out of my mouth in a very violent sort of a gesture. They pulled me back up and started to hit me again, or whip my back, or mock me and use gestures and things just to make me feel terrible. And the distinct feeling that came over me in this place wasn't as much fear like you would think about, in watching a scary movie or something like that, or a jump scare. It was just the absence of anything good. I remember feeling very discouraged, feeling very lost, very hopeless. I remember feelings of regret and guilt, and of course the torture that was going on. It was just all so vivid in my mind in this dream. And then a figure did come before me, one that finally had a face. And I recognized this figure as Satan, but it was not the Satan that you may have seen in the cartoons. He wasn't red, he didn't have horns, but he was disturbing, and he was scary in a way that just made you feel absolutely uncomfortable. He began to speak to me, and he said, "You're here because of your sin." And he said, "And this would be your fate." Everything that I'd experienced up until that point in the dream, he was saying to me, was the result of my sin. And I knew instantly that I was in hell in this dream. And he said, "And this would be your fate if it wasn't for him." Satan was gesturing over to a person that was crouched down in a pen that looked like it was something created for animals. I looked over to the place that he gestured to, this hymn that he was referencing. And this man that was crouched down in the pen was also shirtless and covered in scars and bruises and cuts. And his hair was sort of draped around his face, so I couldn't see his face, but I could see that his body was completely broken. And as I looked over toward him and then looked back at myself, all of the injuries that I had sustained in the last few moments of the dream were now gone. And as I looked back over at this man in this pit, he looked to be incredibly burdened. It's hard to describe fully what I mean, but as I looked at him, he looked as though the weight of the entire world was resting on him in that moment. Somebody completely broken, completely empty. And that person turned their head and finally made eye contact with me. And in that moment, I saw the eyes of somebody who looked completely into my soul, who looked at me with the most compassion I think I'd ever experienced. And for the first time in this dream, a wave of good hit me. And I saw somebody who was filled with compassion, who was filled with love. And I knew instantly that the face I was looking at was Jesus Christ. And the eyes that he looked at me with were ones that I'd never really seen before. I saw a face of somebody that had an expression that was new to me, and it was something filled with total forgiveness. Of course, I'd already made the decision to follow Christ in my life, but to be able to see the face of somebody that was Jesus in this moment, I can't tell you how that felt completely. As I made eye contact with him, I reheard Satan's words to me, which said, "This would be your fate if it wasn't for him." And so then this moment where I'm looking at Jesus face to face and our eyes locked, I immediately lifted up out of this place. As though you'd pressed an eject button, I was whisked up out. The instant feeling that I had, one, it wasn't a sleepy feeling like when you typically wake up. It's as though I was allowed to wake up all of a sudden, and the distinct feeling that I had come over me that God shared with me in that moment was that this dream was so that you would know for sure that hell is real, and that it would be the fate of anybody who doesn't know Christ. And so wherever you are and wherever you're watching this from today, I just want to encourage you that if you follow Christ, if you make that decision to make him the Lord of your life, hell is something you'll never have to experience. But it's very much a reality for those that don't choose Jesus. And so take the warning that I received from the dream, in that hell is very much a real place, but it wasn't designed for humans. Heaven was what was designed for humans, but we need to be able to accept Christ and make that decision to follow him. And so I encourage you today to choose heaven as you think about your ultimate reality and destination. God bless you.